My name's Sylvia Temple and I came to New Zealand 54 years ago this coming January, and I came from England and with my husband and two little children. I knew where New Zealand was, I knew they had sheep, not a lot else. I didn't particularly want to come, but if my husband and they were always, it'd be good for the children. And they had lots of pictures on the small leaflet we got of very happy, healthy looking children.
When we decided that we wanted to migrate, we looked at the States, we looked at Canada, we looked at Australia, we looked at New Zealand. And of all these countries, we found New Zealand to be the best place for us to go. And looking back, I think we were right in making that decision.
When we immigrated, that time it was perestroika in Russia. All life collapsed. Because we have a son, he was when we came here, he was 10 years old, and we don't want to send him to army because it's a compulsory, still compulsory. And in Russia that was a lot of war, Afghanistan, Chechnya, all Caucasus involved. We don't want to send, for what we send our children to the war, to die for what?
My children, future, I must let them to live in other countries. China is not good for recent years. Everything is polluted, I think.
I came with a working holiday visa for 1 year, a 1 year experience in that time, but I kind of like it and I extended for a new work visa, and after that a new one and a new one and a new one. And I have been going through a lot of work visa by now.
Well, Jono had done extensive research. So when he came to me and said, we're moving to New Zealand, he presented a huge folder and it had everything from the weather to the fact there were no spiders and snakes, which was quite important to him. I, on the other hand, just took his word for it, and that was it.
I jokingly applied for the job, and when I got the job I was like, Sarah? Yeah. And she's like, oh, wow, it's real. Yeah, we jumped ship, never been here before, knew nothing about it, complete new place.
And we were ready to get off the ship at Lyttelton, and we were in the gangway waiting, and there was a crowd of ladies, looked as though they'd been on a trip to the capital. And my son looked out of the porthole, he said, Mummy, is this New Zealand? Oh. And been a long trip for him. And this lady turned around, and I'll never forget her. She turned round and she said, have you just arrived, dear? And I said, yes. She said, well, the best of luck. And I've often thought of that lady, and I've thought she never realised how important that was.
It's a very stable and peaceful country. And we were at a stage of our lives that we wanted to make a move in an area where that stability, for bringing up a family, that was something interesting.
We had no relatives and no friends here. It was a leap of faith. So my kids sort of had a shock when they came here. When we made the decision, they felt like they were hostage, they had no choice to come here. So initially, my two oldest daughters, they rebelled, Once they came here and they were able to adapt to the lifestyle here, they actually thanked us for making the decision.
We just decided, could we have a lifestyle in the UK for our kids that we've got here? And the answer is no. Yes, we'd love them to see their grandparents a lot more often, but it could be viewed as us being selfish, but at the end of the day, we want what's best for our children, and in our opinions, they're going to have a much better upbringing here than back in where we're in London, for example, or in other places we could afford. Wouldn't get it.
6 weeks. on a ship. And then for those 6 weeks, you may as well have been on Mars because there was no communication. And then we left Fiji, and all of a sudden this big adventure was about to come up over the horizon, and we had time to adjust. And the people who come now, they're in wherever they come from one day, and within 24 hours, probably they're here. And so the cultural shock to them, and I think it takes those people a lot longer to come emotionally because they haven't had that break.
Well, we arrived in Christchurch on the day of the earthquake, so it was even more than what we expected. And the way that we chose to see this was that New Zealand had given us a gift because we were immediately part of a story. And when you emigrate, you leave some of your history behind, you leave some of your identity behind. And we were part of that story. And that was an amazing, amazing opportunity. Growing up and being in the time when Nelson Mandela was a president in South Africa, he had the belief that he wanted to make South Africa a rainbow nation. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. But you see that here in New Zealand, and you see this wonderful smorgasbord, this melting pot of an amazing group of people who come from all sorts of backgrounds, and it's amazing.
I think I feel safe here. There's a safe thing. And I think New Zealanders are lovely, they're friendly, they're non-judgmental. I just feel at home, particularly in Rangiora, funnily enough, and I do.
The people were so polite. After they say something, and after they say thank you, and it's like, that was so weird for me, because I don't know. Even if you're working for someone, and they say thank you after, it's like, what? But you're paying me for it. It's like I have to do it anyway. That was my thinking. Well, with the time, I think that is awesome.
The first 2 years were exceptionally hard. I'm a very social creature, so trying to fit in, trying to make friends, finding a job, that took me a really long time. Really, I struggled with that.
I had a sense of, I felt lost, yeah. I was away from what is familiar to me. I felt that I've lost a sense of identity, security, and I was doing very well in Singapore job-wise, and I have to start all over again, and that was a struggle because I felt that I had to prove myself to the people here that I'm worth something.
You're trying to fit in, but you lose your identity, and that's what I did. And it took years and years for me to sort out who I was again. So it's a balancing act, you know. This is a wonderful place and I love it to bits, but you can't lose who you are either. You've got to there's a fine line though, because when you come somewhere different, you're bending over backwards because you're different, so you have to fit in.
I tried for 3 years, lots of tears, lots of heartache, to make friends. And of course, I tried to make friends with Kiwi people because I felt we were living in a new country with a new culture, new people, and I wanted to be a part of that. But no matter how many times I tried, it just always seemed to backfire. It was exceptionally hard. I used to think there was something wrong with me. I wasn't sure if I was smelly or if I spoke funny or what it was, but it was a real struggle.
I was quite a long time before I actually met a New Zealander that I could call a friend because, you know, I didn't know many people at all. And, of course, they were getting on with their lives. And I don't think people understand the depth that you've gone to and the loneliness you can feel. However happy you are when you come to another country, the culture is different. I thought they spoke English, and yet when I first came, I couldn't understand a lot of what was said. So if it isn't your language at all, I feel for those people greatly because it must be very isolating.
We decided not to be South Africans. We we have our heritage, we have our identity, but we decided not to specifically seek out other South Africans. We were going to make friends with people no matter who they were. And I think that has made the difference for us, and that's broken down some of the us and them. I knew that we had really, really made progress when some friends of ours called us whānau. That was amazing. But it took a lot of hard work, and it wasn't an easy nut to crack.
You've got to break away, because the more we remain and we have isolated pockets of groups, of ethnic groups, it will be also very hard for the Kiwis to break in. And I see that happening, and I don't think it's healthy for the people who come here and also for the Kiwis. I don't think it's a healthy way to go, to just form pockets of your own culture.
For a while, when we arrived, I felt like a foreigner. But after a couple of years working there, we felt like we were part of the community. We developed friendships with other Kiwis, and they treat us just like everybody else.
I opened my mind here. I have some bad feelings about the Argentinians when I was living in Chile, about the Peruvians, about too many people. But I came here and I start to know Indians, and they are the same like us, the same with the Chinese people. And I will say that you need to get involved in the community. That's, for me, is one of the main points. That's why with my partner we start to grow up in that way, trying to be part of the community, get involved, try to talk with the people, don't get racist or don't separate from the rest.
Sometimes when you enter into a room and there is silence, an invisible barrier that who's going to approach first, what do I say? Can that person understand me? Can that person speak English? So that's the fear, that invisible wall. Yeah, and who's going to break through?
It's an exceptionally hard transition. I meet ladies all the time that have been here for different periods of time, and I actually see that, we've just arrived, and then 9 months down the line they almost get a grey look, because it becomes quite depressing and quite soul-wrenching, that initial process. But you've got to hang in there and give it some time.
When I had my first trip back to England, and I can remember being on the plane, and it follows the Thames up towards Heathrow, and I remember sitting there thinking, oh God, I'm home. And that's how I felt, that I was back in my roots and I was home, back in step again. And then when I got the plane back again, I had the same feeling when I got back, and I thought, oh wow, because I didn't know I'd feel that way. I thought, I'm lucky, I've got two homes. I belong in two places, so I have to embrace both. You don't have to get rid of one to belong to another.
They laugh at my accent, but I laugh at their accent as well, the Kiwi accent sometimes. So it's like, but just joking, between my workmates. They're very cool.
So we have central heating in Russia, everywhere central heating. Come here, Lockburn. So that was one of the interesting shock as well for us. And the people, like sometimes in the winter, it's warmer outside than inside. So when our neighbors all the time open the morning the windows in the winter, so what's they doing? So, but then we understand, because humidity gone and it's become warmer.
People are so honest, There's no such thing as trade me in the Philippines, because it's amazing to me that you buy something online and it actually arrives. And you pay somebody who haven't even seen, and vice versa,
Yeah.
So, people take you on your word.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's something that's very important.
Being a foreigner or being an immigrant, there's a lot to learn. So just better embrace it. And if you have some negativity coming to you, just think that this is not something only that happens from country to country, or from some people from one country to you, that it can also happen from someone from Christchurch to Auckland, for example. Yes.
being an Asian, being a woman, and being a Methodist minister, it's still a struggle. Because you still have to work doubly hard, you still have to bend backwards to say that I am capable of doing this job, because you are put in a mold that Asian women perhaps walk 10 steps behind their husband and submissive, and here I am trying to take on a leadership role. So it is still a struggle. There's still assumptions.
You know, when I was applying for jobs in dairy farming and as a manager, you know, I'm always struggling uphill if I'm competing with other Kiwi farm managers for the job, if you know what I mean. There was even a situation where the employer wanted me, but he didn't hire me because he was concerned that the other internationals in the team won't take me as their leader. And that's the only reason he picked the other guy.
Unfortunately, there are some biases around South Africans in the workplace, and you had to work really, really hard to create relationships and build that trust so that people were willing to work with you and willing to share information and willing to adopt you into the workplace, you could say.
You know, underneath we're all just human beings, and the similarities that we have are much more than the differences. We maybe look different, we maybe sound different, but when you really get to know people, they're people the same as you are.
Yeah, I want to stay in New Zealand. I want to apply a new visa, and for my wife and second daughter come here. We live with us. This is my dream. Yes. I want to buy a farm in New Zealand and build a hotel. Yeah, this is my dream. Yeah.
I think New Zealand is blessed, and the only, I mean, as a country, as a place to, grow your business, as a place to emigrate. But the distance is the real deal breaker. You have to realize that arranging for coming back is quite tough.
I don't think it matters who you are. I don't think it matters how much family you have or haven't got you. It is a hard process. It's not easy to transition. It's really hard. People say that we're deserting our country. Well, I say you've got to have some serious steel kahunas to move over to a new country. And I don't think it matters what their country is or where their country is. It is really, really hard.
The journey is going to have peaks and troughs. And you sometimes go through the depths of despair in these troughs. And to accept the fact that that's normal. And to realize that, yeah, you might just have to reach out to that social group that you've created to help you through that trough.
I feel that for my kids here, they are Kiwis, and they will always be Kiwis, and they will also have that root of both the Italian side and the Venezuelan side. They'll like myself. I am both. You cannot deny your side for both, and they're going to be, New Zealanders, and they will have both. And I think it's also upon us to give them those roots, to have the connection with those roots.
I think there's so many layers to the onion, so I don't think you can ever say you've cracked the nuts. But I can say that we're feeling comfortable in our own skin, and we absolutely love this place that we have chosen to be part of. And I think you constantly have to give of yourself, and you constantly have to give back to your community and invite people in. It's not going to happen just by itself. Yeah.
It took 7 years for me to accept that it was not initially my decision to be here, but unless I let go, I wasn't going to let anyone in. The last 2 years have totally changed everything for us. I have lots of Kiwi friends now, and they're awesome.
When you first come, you just need that lady that I met on the boat. You just need that one kindness
you.